Namaste. Welcome to our Satsang. We, I hope, are prepared. I can have a commercial because we have a new book that I hope people will find really useful. And it is, you have to forgive me, this is a mirror image. And so everything goes backwards to what I think I'm moving. All right. Psychic Defense for Yogis, a yogic manual. Now that's important, yogic. On psychic phenomena, protection, and self-mastery. It's a great cover designed by our Swami Nirmalananda. And it's very practical. It's not very long, 74 pages. It's very valuable. It talks about, of course, psychological things, esoteric things, yogic, middle, interior things, and physical things. There are two tremendously effective psychic defenses that are physical. And although it's undignified, I think I'll hold them out and show them to you. There, you see it's not very bright, but you see there's a cross. On the other side is the great patriarch of Christian monks, Saint Benedict. Well, it's called the Saint Benedict Medal. Its history is interesting. In Germany, in the Middle Ages, there was an area that had a tremendous amount of problems with negative psychic attacks. And this happens from time to time in every country where there will be an upsurge of these negative, frustrated people, and they're jealous of people. So if someone is successful and so on, they try to make trouble for them and bring all kinds of agitation and grief into their daily life. So there was a place where, and by the way, gypsies who have real psychic power, genuine gypsies, remarkable people, they were heavily persecuted, they were hated, and therefore they weren't very fond of the people around them. And we don't blame them. So one of the ways, too, they made money is they'd go into a rural area, they'd put some kind of a hoodoo on the livestock. The livestock would get sick. The gypsies would show up and say, we know what to do, and they would do what maybe they took off the curse they'd put on, and everything was fine. But they discovered that there were farms where they couldn't do anything. They could not put a curse on anyone or anything. They could not possibly influence it. And they were amazed. What can this be? Interestingly enough, at the same time, there was a very large Benedictine monastery that was always absolutely free from psychic disturbance of any kind. You see, mentally ill people can create psychic disturbance. It doesn't have to be a black magician. But nothing ever bad took place. Everything was just fine. In fact, if people who were seeming possessed or obsessed by spirits, or they were off their head and they figured, well, maybe a curse has been on them, if they'd bring them there, they just walked through the door and everything was all right. So they were amazed. How could this be? Well, it happened. You see, everything is by divine plan. And so all kinds of coincidences take place when the universe is getting ready to reveal things. So They found in their library just a few pages, manuscript pages. And they had this diagram on them with just letters of the alphabet. Didn't seem to mean anything. So what can this possibly be? And some of the people who've done work with the roof had said, well, this thing is on a couple of walls up in the very top of the monastery in the attic. They went up and they found it, and there it was. And some people had seen these same things that were in the farm where no evil spells could be cast. So they decided to go to the library, and remember, those are the days of books copied by hand. But they went through the library, and finally they found a whole article about what was called the Holy Medal of Saint Benedict. Where it comes from, we don't know. Not very likely it comes from Saint Benedict, but it must have been created in the Benedictine monastery. And so here it was, and these letters were actually the initial letters of Latin formulas, I don't want to say incantations, but exorcistic statements. And it worked. As we knew a great healer named Benjamin Bibb, who unfortunately has left the world. And he used to say, you can't argue with results. Well, a lot of people can, but sensible people don't. So they started making medals. And they said, well, on one side, let's put Saint Benedict and so on. So they did. So these are very, very powerful and very effective. You can order Saint Benedict medals from Amazon, of course. Are you surprised? Now, there is a special ritual to bless them. But the truth is, if you simply, in your right hand, take the medal, or medals, it could be, and hold them, like I'm going to do with these beads. And you hold it, and very calmly, with your attention on your hand and the touch and feeling of the medals, and you, I think I like closing the eyes, and you intone so hum. I don't mean so hum like when you're doing it with your breath, but you intone so hum. Do it 4 times, and it'll be activated. Don't ask me how. I don't care. I don't know how an automobile runs, really. I had to suffer through man in the motor car when I was a freshman in high school. But anyway, it works. Now, the other thing so important are Rudraksha beads. I've talked about these. These are the seeds of a tree. Rudraksha means eye of Shiva, Rudra. And there are, a Rudraksha bead has vertical lines on its side. And there are different kind of beads with different kind of markings. We won't need to go into that. But the one that is most important for us has 5 vertical lines, and this is so small, I don't think I could show it to you. I have a couple of big ones I should have kept back. But anyway, there it is. And 108 have a special magnetic value effect. 108 and then one, what we call the Meru, the mountain. And it has, it's the only thing exists in material existence that has an absolute perfect balance of all the 5 elements, or even pranas if you want to say. Therefore, it stabilizes. That's its main thing. It energizes, it stabilizes, and it corrects. And you wear it, and you wear it touching the skin. That's very important. Not outside. There are people in India that wear, you have to forgive me, I keep looking at them. This mirror image. There are people in India, and they sometimes have 1,008 of these great big beads and so on. But the truth is, the smaller the bead, the more powerful. I have no idea why. So anyway, these things can be gotten from Amazon. You may have to string them yourself, but you can also get the Rudraksha beads, and they act like a lightning rod. Maybe I need to explain to you what a lightning rod is. I'm from the old days. So out in the country, you had a real danger in storms. A tall tree somehow could attract lightning. So it's a bad storm, you run under the tree and then bam, the lightning comes down the tree. And also it would hit, especially 2 or 3-story farmhouses would be struck with it. So they created what they call a lightning rod. Think of it as just kind of a steel antenna that was up on the roof, connected with a steel cable, which went down the side of the building and to a certain depth in the ground. So lightning would strike the rod. It wouldn't strike, say, the roof and set it on fire. And the force of the lightning would go down and be dispersed in the ground itself. And that was the protection. Well, these act like lightning rods. So if you enter a place that's negative or you're around negativity, it will absorb it. And I have had Rudraksha beads that were strung on metal, of all things, in time of very negative time, one period, when I was in India, actually. And one time, my beads fell apart in 3 places at one time. Now, every so often, I mean, it could be months, you don't have to be worrying about it. You should take these off because they are continually absorbing energies, and they can absorb a lot. And you just take them off and take the beads and hold them under the cold water, not cold water faucet, not hot, cold. And just hold it there and let the water wash over it for, I don't know, 30 seconds, a minute. And then that's fine, put it back on. So it's a good idea to every so often do that and clear it out. And it may sound strange, and it may sound superstitious, and it may sound crazy, but again, as the great healer said, you don't argue with results. Some people do, but let's us not. Therefore, these are 2 physical things that are written about in this book and explain how to work with them. All right, fine. Hope I got it. You have to forgive me. I'm a little bit fuzzy. I had to have some surgery, and they give you anesthesia, and for a yogi especially, you're very sensitive to these things. They affect you stronger than they do. So often a normal dosage is on the border of too much for a yogi. Of course, you just have to wait and see how your karma works out with that one, but it's true. And so, I had the surgery, etc. But there are a few wisps, I think, of the anesthesia still around. And I hope it won't affect my thinking of what I have to say, but so it is. All right, fine. As we advance in our practice, will discerning between a strong interest and a calling be made clear to us? In other words, there's something you feel attracted to, you feel drawn to. And is this a message? This is a way for you to go. Or this is something for you to adopt and use. So is it just an affinity, or is it your higher self saying, move over to this different space, or take this extra element into your life, or take up a certain practice and do it? And this is very, very important. And the problem is that when we deal with the mind, we've got the ego, and when we've got the mind, we've got the ego, we have ignorance. So then, yes, your intuition will develop. Yes, you'll have a pretty good idea, but it's only wisdom to objectify and test it. Well, how are you going to do that? Well, I'm very, very serious here. This is one of the most important things that anyone, yogi or not yogi, can have. There. And inside that purple wooden box resides some dear friends of mine, namely a deck of tarot cards, etc. This is hopeless for me to show anything, but anyway, here you are. This was formulated by A.E. Waite, Arthur Edgar Waite. He was a very holy man. He was an archdeacon in the Church of England. He was a Christian occultist or Christian esotericist, whichever word you want. And he formulated that deck. He heard that there was this very unique deck in a museum, I think in Italy. And he contacted them and asked if they would photograph all the cards, because normally in an ordinary tarot deck, you just have your 22, 21, 22 cards, what they call major arcana, which have these symbolic pictures. And then the rest, they're like in playing cards, you have hearts and spades and so on. And so, they have swords, wands, and so on, and just, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, up to 10 wands. All right. But in this particular deck in Italy, there were symbolic pictures in every single card of the deck. So he arranged for the museum to take photos of every card. When he got the photos, he consulted with a very famous watercolorist named Pamela Coleman Smith. And together they looked together, and she, with her art, came up with versions of these that he felt were the best in their symbolism. And so the deck is used for divination, and they can give incredibly detailed information. And I've written a book, which I don't have here to show you, how to read the tarot. So how to read the tarot. A very simple title. And there you see how to do it. I have worked out for the Waite deck a very definite way of using it or reading it, which is much simpler than the usual way, which is a relief. And so there you can see, you can discover. I remember there was a time when I didn't have the weight deck, I had another deck, not as good, but it worked. And when I was in the fourth grade, there was this girl I was in school with. She was kind of a pill, so I remembered her. And then when I was around 21, I became acquainted with her mother. Very wonderful, very devout lady. And her daughter had gone off to the East Coast and hardly ever communicated with her. So every day I told her what was happening to her daughter, what her daughter was doing. And I don't mean I looked at the cards and got a psychic impression and a vision. It was right there. And she got married. And her mother said, well, I wonder how things are going to work. So I knew the very day they'd be married. So I waited until by Eastern Standard Time or whatever, they would have happened. And I laid them out. No, the next day, after the wedding, I laid out. And so boom, they'd blown up. They were going to get a divorce. Well, that's a pretty big message. And the day after, well, I said, this doesn't make any sense to me. And of course, she wasn't giving me money, so I wasn't cheating her. But they're split up. And when I saw her the next time, she said, I got a call that day from her, and she and her husband split up, and they're utterly irreconcilable. Isn't that amazing? I had a habit, it almost sounds like the cards are misanthropic and don't like marriage, because there was a girl I'd grown up with going to church. And I'm trying, yes, and she was getting married to this young man at the university which I was attending. And his best friend was kind of worried. It's like, how is it really going to work for them? Because to tell you the truth, the girl was not the most on focus. So it was a Saturday, and they were going to be married, and they were going down to the state capitol to meet his parents. So they would see her, and then just in a week or two, they were to be married. So it was that day, it was a Saturday, and we found a side room in the library where we could close the door, and so put out the cards. And I said, you've got nothing to worry about. They have blown apart, and there'll be no wedding. And he didn't believe me, and I said, of course you don't believe me. I don't believe it, but there it is. So next day I saw him, he said, yes. They went down, they visited his parents. On the way back, they had a huge fight. Now they decided they hated each other, and that was the end of that. So I've had some really interesting experiences with the tarot. And it's a very valuable tool. You should never be superstitious about it. And when I see something and I think it just surely can't be true, I say, okay, I'll wait and find out. I won't act on it at all. I'll just see. So I've never, ever proved wrong. It's not I wasn't proved wrong. That was never proved wrong. Wait knew what he was doing. Indeed. Okay, fine. So I do recommend you get the book and learn. Okay. Therefore, like this, is it something to be done? What are the aspects? You can ask all kinds of questions. What level does this question come from and so on? You just get as creative as can, and you just become Grand Inquisitor and get a good squeeze on the cards and find out what's happening. The things interesting about the weight deck was I used to not have any regard for it, because every psychic fair I went to, the beginners who didn't know what they were doing and were so blatant as they kept a book there, as they were giving the reading, they all used the weight deck. And I knew some esotericists who were good, and they much prefer different decks and so on. But basically, if you know what you're doing, the weight is the best. All right. So learn how to do it. This is important. In fact, I've got a note here of something I want to say that relates to that. All right. Why is the mind continually talking? Don't ask me. You did, didn't you? And who or what is talking? What's it talking to? Well, we talk to ourselves a lot. Oh, I do. We often have to talk to ourselves to objectify our ideas. I learned that early part of my college career, is that I could just sit and relax and think, okay, I'm going to tell myself about someone. And I just tell myself. Now, that isn't common, I know, but I don't want to pretend like, oh, I have this special gift, because I don't. But I come from a family that was psychic. I mean, a big family. I mean, a lot of psychic. So then, all right, let me go to two more subjects, and that may take up all our time. Okay. Therefore, Arjuna, be a yogi. This is the message of the Bhagavad Gita. That's what it's all about. Be a yogi. Be a yogi. Be a yogi. Don't talk yogi. Don't just act yogi in a sense of, oh, I'm a mysterious meditator, but you be one. It is what it's your life work. That's what you should be making of yourself. Of course, you have your profession and all that. You add that in too. But the fundamental thing is you are a living, evolving being. And that has infinite potential. And you must tap that infinite potential. So, a yogi takes charge of his life. Now, you might say, well, if he takes charge of his life, what does he do tarot readings for? That's one of the ways he takes charge. It's like somebody's sick. Well, do they have a fever? Take the thermometer, put it in their mouth. You find out if they've got a fever or not. So these things are practical just because they're invisible. This is important about the yogi. First, you take charge of the conscious mind, and then you start getting, as you meditate, you're going both into the subconscious mind and the superconscious mind, and you become in charge. Sri Guru should not be telling you every time you should blow your nose. I remember someone once mentioned about someone and said, he doesn't have disciples, he has slaves. And there are people like that. There are also superstitious, super dependent people that they don't even want to open a can of soup if Sri Guru hadn't told them it's okay to do it. And that's ridiculous, because the divine Atma in Krishna is no more divine than your Atma. It's a matter of what's been released and what has, of course, grown and developed. But the essence, no. So understand this. There's all this potential in you. Now, fools engage what they call positive thinking, which just means trying to kid the mind. I am well, I am wealth, I am healthy, I am wise. Nonsense. Get busy and make it happen. Get busy and make it be. This is so important. We're not cream puffs. We're not waiting for God on high to say, yes, my child, today you ought to go downtown. Not in the least. You're it, and you don't have anybody else to depend on. We all like the omniscient guru thing. We all like the omnipotent guru thing. It happens, first of all, it's a lie. And it's very, very harmful to you. There are real gurus. And what does the guru do? The guru tells you how to take charge of your own life, and then you take charge of your life. You see? There's a story, it's been so long since I heard it, but they were about, no, yes. It's a Zen Buddhist story. And it was about a master. He had disciples. A lot of them lived in isolated areas that practiced meditation. And the master had always taught the mind is the teacher, the mind is the self. The mind is. But he wasn't a fool, and he kept his mind open, and he came to realize, no, there's something else to say. So he said, no mind, no self, no Buddha, no mind. Now, we've got to be careful because we're not talking about numbers. And he had an Eastern mind. So when he says no Buddha, it's not like Buddha doesn't exist, there's nothing to it. He means something very profound. So anyway, he told one of the disciples, I've understood it should be no Buddha, no mind, no Buddha. And why don't you go and tell this disciple, this is what I've understood. So I now know better than when I taught him. So he went there. I mean, it was in a mountain range. It was not easy. Finally got there, and he said, you know, our master said, he had said the Buddha is the mind, but now he says no Buddha, no mind. And the man said, I don't care. I say the Buddha is the mind, and the mind is the Buddha. Oh, he was shocked. But he was also one of those kind of little weasel disciples. I'm going to go tell on him. So he runs out the door and off he goes. He goes back. He's so glad. I'm a faithful disciple. He isn't. I get to tell. So he goes and he says how he has said, I don't care. I still say the Buddha's the mind. The master smiled and said, I see. He's gained maturity. So, this is the way it ought to be. It's better to have a wrong idea that's your idea than to have a right idea that you don't know what to do with. So it is. All right, fine. Finish that. Now, someone wrote and asked me about Ganesha. You know, sort of, well, what's it? And I realize this is very, very important because naturally, when a person is ignorant, they think, boy, I'm really lucky to be as dumb as I am because these other people, they confuse themselves, but I'm not confused. So there's the old business about, oh, yes, primitive religion starts out and they're involved with nature, spirits, and so on. And ultimately, you know, your religion develops and it has multitudes of gods, but the wiser it gets, the less gods, and in fact, there's the one God. Yes, absolutely. Monotheism is the pinnacle, you see. So everybody's scared about Hinduism. What about all those gods? I've had people use those words to me. What about all those gods? I say, well, they're real. They're there. What do you mean, what about all those gods? So here's the way, a little bit, the way the universe works. The sentient being comes in and lives through many lives, hopefully advancing, hopefully developing, elaborating, and progressing. And it goes through, you and I have gone through, from an atom of hydrogen, we've gone through every form there is. We've all been amoeba. We've all been mosquitoes and woolly worm caterpillars. We have been thunder lizards. I mean, you name it, we've been it. And when you get up to the human level, and then you can really consciously start working at things, then you become more and more and more in consciousness. And therefore, just as there are some people, obviously they come on the earth to be teachers of others. Some come on earth to make great discoveries and save people's lives and make people's lives more facilitated. We don't get snobby about it, like, well, that's beneath that. No, it's all one picture of movement. Therefore, you see, you're a frog until you're a perfect frog, and then you go to the next step, and then you go to the next step. You don't just take up one form, drop it, and say, okay, what's next higher? You have to evolve through it, so that your own mind makes it impossible for you to go back to a lower form, and impels you to go the next step up, the next shade up, to a higher form. It's a long journey. Those who go beyond human, then they become superhuman. And some of them just say, there's the light up there, and they go steadily and they go. Others, their karma is that they must help others, that they were helped by others in their upward journey. So they must also help others in that same journey. So they go, sometimes they become nature spirits. They control rain, they control tides, and they work for the ordering of just what we call natural forces, and then they work for the ordering of spiritual forces. And nature spirits are real, and they look after plant life, they look after animal life, and they supervise them and so on. And finally, they come to a point where they can help human beings. And so, what are they? They're gods. Little g, but they're gods. They're healing gods. There's psychic clairvoyant gods. There's gods that just give you knowledge. Literally, there are multitudes of gods, and that's how they evolve. They're helping the people below them, and then they can go to a higher level and higher and higher. So the gods are countless. And the gods were all once human beings, just like you and I. And they were all the lesser things like you and I were. Just yesterday, I was watching a spider frantically running down our driveway so I wouldn't run over him. And I just stopped and went a good distance away so he wouldn't be afraid. And but there he is. And one day he'll be saying, you mean to tell me I was a bug? Do you think I'm a fool? Who'd believe such a thing? There we are. So it happens. See, we learn. A lot of learning is unlearning. Finding out what we don't know or what we don't know fully. So then, all of the gods, Indra, who sends rain. Let me tell you my experience. I was in Mexico City, riding down the street, not a cloud in the sky. And I knew there was an anthropological museum in Mexico City. In fact, I wanted to go there. I heard there was an image of the goddess Kali there, which it was. I saw her. It's interesting. So, but I didn't know where I was. And suddenly we came, and there was this huge building, and here was this giant image, incredible monolithic image. And I understood it was Tlaloc, who is the Inca god of rain. When Tlaloc was found in the jungles, the moment they began raising the image up, it rained. And it took a few weeks' journey all the way to Mexico City, and it rained every single day over where Tlaloc was. And idiots said, "Ah, isn't that funny? Isn't that really something? Just think he's a rain god, and wherever they're taking him, it's raining." Now, that, friend, is D-U-M dumb. Obviously, Tlaloc is a real person. So anyway, there he was, and oh, was he a real person? Well, I'm used to thinking Indian terms, and so I just said, Om Indrayanama, Om Indrayanama, Om Indrayanama. And it rained for about 5 minutes. Real fine mist, but it rained. Later, I went back to the museum and got to visit with him, and he showed me some interesting things. But that's what the gods are, you see. Yes, are there bad gods who demand sacrifice? Yeah, that's right. You just have enough sense to not pay attention to them. But it is so. You cannot count the gods. In the Gita, Krishna says, the gods are my million faces. But luckily for you and I, we know there is the Parabrahman, there is a supreme being. So you might as well go to the head of the whole hierarchy, and us, because Tatvamasi, thou art that. Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman. This is one of the great sayings, the Mahavakyas of the Upanishads. So that's what gods are. Super evolved beings that have been human beings. So they're very real, and sometimes it's very valuable and intelligent to interact with them, and sometimes it isn't. And that'll just have to be, what can I say, all up to you. But it's very, very real. That's what's wonderful about being a yogi. You realize it's all alive. Now look at this. This is a form of bliss text, Every atom in this plastic container and every bit of that little goo is a spark of consciousness. Now, this is sleeping consciousness. In you and I, it's waking consciousness. But it's going. Now, heaven knows how long it may take 3 or 4 cycles of creation before this is even a squirrel running in a tree. But it will go there. And I sometimes, in things I've written, I quote Sister Madhuleva and her poem where she says, I cannot wait, for oh, it is to God I go. You and I are going to God. I don't care if we're atheists. I don't care if the rottenest people ever lived. We're going to. Now, we make a whole crooked way like on a map. In fact, if you look at the reconstruction of the route of the Jewish people from Egypt into Israel, that they literally did that in the great wilderness. That it's almost a square. 40 years. They no doubt might have made it in 4 years, but they didn't have a direction, and so they wandered. Of course, well, what about the pillar of cloud and the pillar of fire by night? Well, it didn't work very well, or else they didn't work with it very well. But so it is. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. We are going on that pilgrimage. And it's a wonderful thing to know. And none of us are negligible. We can be acting negligibly, And we can be pretty stubborn about not paying attention, but still that light is there. Atma Jyoti. One of the reasons that we call ourselves Atma Jyoti Ashram is the knowledge not, oh, that the light's in me. You don't understand. Swami Nirmalananda spent much time in India, in the Himalayas, and he knew Ananda Moima. Fooey. Thou art that. You know as much as I know, but you've forgotten it. So my job is to help you remember. But you're already wise. You're perfect. The truth is, you're liberated. But you dream you are in jail. Someone once asked someone, I'm trying to remember which it was. They said, oh yes, of course, it was Arthur Kessler, thought he was a big intellect. And he talked to Swami Vijayananda, who was Dr. Jacques Weintraub, who went to live in India and became a sadhu there, ideal sadhu. And so he asked, so Kessler asked him, being interested in personal power, oh, well, then when you attain enlightenment, are you going to be, will then you be coming back to enlighten other people? And he said, it's a silly question, it doesn't have any meaning. Kessler was not pleased. He said, if you are asleep and you dream you are in jail with a whole multitude of people, and you realize it's a dream, do you say, when I wake up, I'm coming back to get these people out of here? Because that's the good thing. When you're out of the dream, you're out of the dream. When you're awake, you're awake. So it is. I am rattling on, aren't I? I hope it's a little bit meaningful rattle. Let me see. I need to look at my time. Oh, all right. Okay. If we do not remember our past lives, how can we make ourselves better people? Well, by living according to ethical principles, by putting people's welfare above ours, by, again, one of the verses I had to learn in Sunday school was about Jesus, said, and he went about doing good. So that's one of the ways you do. You make yourself a better person. Excuse me, I'm trying to find what I need to write with. You find out you already are better people. Be a yogi, be a yogi, be a yogi. Because I'm telling you, you don't know what's going to happen to you in your future life. You may be born on some island somewhere in the middle of the South Pacific. And there won't be any literacy, and there won't be any insight, and there won't be any philosophy. And what are you going to do then? So strike while the iron is hot and get busy and create enlightenment karma through yoga, through meditation. Soham yoga, I recommend. But whatever means or whatever esoteric practice, develop yourself, develop yourself, develop yourself. If that momentum is there, when you leave your body, you'll go to an astral world where people will keep telling you how to keep developing. And when you come back, you'll come in the orbit of those people. You do it. It's in your hands. It's all up to you. And remembering past lives means very little. I've known some people, I think, I think they remember their past lives, but they didn't know what to do with it. You see? Knowledge is worthless if it can't be applied and increased. All right, so past life recall doesn't mean much. Every half-baked metaphysician I've ever met, and I've even sat in restaurants here and said, in my Egyptian incarnation. They always had an Egyptian incarnation. And guess what? In the Egyptian incarnation, they were either a priest or a nun who broke their vows of celibacy and either got put in prison or killed. Yeah, sure. Isn't that a romantic fantasy to have about yourself? Okay. When we're reincarnated as lower beings of life, how can we get good karma and become a human being? You become, well, first of all, you can't think about it. So you can't on an intellectual level. Now, if you met a real yogi who he might be able to like tune into you and show you means, I don't even want to describe it, but show you the better way to do things as an animal. And show you, you'll just become a better animal. You won't become a human being. But mostly we muddle through, and that's why they're stuck there so long. You understand? It's to understand the path of life, and rebirth and karma is wonderful. At the same time, it's god awful because you can get trapped. And you can be very wise in this life, and because you neglect your knowledge, back you go down to the bottom. There are some people who so violate themselves that when they come back, they're brain damaged. And they can't do anything higher. I mean, it's really true. Now we say, you mean those people are bad? It's not bad or good. It's just simply face in the mirror. Face in the mirror. So then, if you're a tree or snail or something, what can you do? You're the best tree, you're the best snail. But it'll all be subliminal because you won't be there to talk about it. However, there are nature spirits. They're just like herdsmen that herd sheep and herd cattle. There are spirits that do go among plant life and they help them. Usually they just, I don't know, teach them, urge them, stimulate them to be plants. They don't say, hey, get higher than this. No. Because until you are perfect, really, until you are a perfect mole in the ground, you're going to be burrowing under the earth over and over again. And when you're really good at it, therefore we should respect all forms of life because they're all going up toward divinity and they all have value. So be careful before you swat that fly. I should have brought, we have a thing called a bug bazooka, like bazooka, but it's called bug bazooka. And it works on air suction principle. And it's so long, about between 2 and 3 feet. And when there's a bug flying around, especially if it lands, and you bring it near it and you press a button, this air sucks them into a little chamber about this big. Doesn't hurt them at all. And then you take that outside and you open it up and you fly away. Because if they stay inside, they're going to die. So yes, people think it's people who are egotistical, materialistic, and frankly, selfish. They think to not look out for old number one is a foolish thing. But those life forms have meaning. They have value. When I found that when a building is abandoned, the spiders we call granddaddy long legs, with a little body about that big and then real long legs. They come in and they inhabit empty buildings. So when we got our ashram building and we came in, first time, there were granddaddy long legs around everywhere. Fortunately, I understood how it would work, and so we just didn't pay any attention. And it wasn't a week before they were all gone because they don't really care to live around human beings. But we didn't kick them, we didn't stomp on them, we didn't whack it. And you have to use your mind, of course, regarding these things. If you got a tarantula that would love to take a bite out of you, you protect yourself, but try to not hurt them, because you were there one time too. That's very, very important. So oftentimes, one of the things we need for a higher form is for somebody else to reach down and touch us and say, here, let me give you a boost. Okay, well, I've taken up our time mostly, but let's have one more. I've read a lot of information on Christian websites about meditation and its ability to attract demons to you. I shouldn't laugh. Forgive me. How would you counter the Christian point of view? I wouldn't. If that's what they like, and that gives them a good excuse to just still sit down in the mud and pick their nose, let it be so. I don't care. You see? Who are they? Why should they scare you? Oh, there's demons. Demons are going to get you. Look, I was a fundamentalist Protestant. We were as dumb and superstitious and ignorant and as ineffectual as we could possibly be. But the Lord Jesus was in our soul. And it did a lot of good. Now, I'm not mocking Christianity. Jesus, first of all, he is a great not yogi. He is a great master of the not yogi tradition. Jesus was a Yadava. The Jewish people are Yadavas. India is their homeland. When Jesus went back to India, he went home. This is really the truth. This is why Jewish people, if they're interested, have such a good aptitude for yoga sadhana. Well, it's their ancestral roots. That's what they are. That's one of the reasons evil people hate Jews, is because they're the embodiment of that and of that enlightenment. I know there can be tiresome people of any kind of nationality, but I'm always suspicious of people who are prejudiced about Jews. I'll tell you the truth. So the Christians are always like, yes, the demons will get you. Well, you see, they praise the demons. They believe in the demons. They glorify the demons. They talk about their power, the great danger. They do this, do that. Oh, there's this kind of evil spirit. There's that kind of. They don't talk about angels. What's wrong with them? They say, oh, Jesus came into my heart. He's the light of the world. What are you living in a cloud of darkness for then? Oh, it's all around the corner. They're going to get me. They're going to get me. You know what? What self-resisting, what self-respecting demon wants you? Let's be real. But they talk about that. So when you start to meditate, the demons are there because these mantras evoke demons. Now, having said that, in Bharat, there's everything possible to find. There are evil people in Bharat who have evil esoteric occult practices, and they do practice and they invoke evil energies and evil consciousness. Yes. And they're the ones that usually say Hinduism is no good, but we've got the right way, even though they're in India. And they always want the dark power, the dark power. See, it's what you talk about. Most, it's because of what you think about. So these people are always real big about, oh yes, so you need a protection. Yes, there is a hellish demonic group, and I'm going to name them. Radha Swami Satsang. They are gates to hell. And all they do is go on about how everyone's more evil than them, and everyone is deluded. And they have, one of them has, of course, they can't get along with each other because they're miserable, hateful people. So there's about maybe half a dozen of them, different groups. And there's one that has a website. And right on the opening page, you know what you see? Like in the international signs, there's a circle and then the line through the circle, meaning it's banned. And behind that, all the deities, all the Hindu deities keep appearing in a series. Constant sincerity, meaning no Krishna, no Rama, no Vishnu, no Shiva, blah, 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 blah. Their mantras, which they're 5 holy names, they really invoke negative, destructive consciousness. Now, you can do it if you want and find out. What's it to me? I've known people that I watched them. I had friends, you see. In fact, there was a Radhaswami chiropractor who treated me for free because I had so many Radhaswami friends. And I loved them. I never tried to dislodge them because it wasn't my business. But I watched friends disintegrate psychologically under that practice. And the first thing was they lost their sense of humor. They stopped being cheerful, unless it was nasty to laugh. And they really went wrong. I found an interesting thing about that time in California. Nearly every initiate had either had spent time in a mental institution or they'd been a drug addict. They mostly all had that background. And they had that paranoia. So you say, call the evil one. Call just means time. It's like out to get you. And you don't dare, if you meditate, you're in danger of demons coming to get you. I'm telling you about this so you know it's not just the Christians that are on the side of evil telling you this foolishness. And you're, so though the 5 names are there to protect you and so on. Yeah. You're calling on the fire department and the cannibal squad shows up instead. That's sad. But it's really so, and I see no reason not to name them. And if you go on and you do some research on the internet, you'll find people that it's their own personal experience, and they'll tell you what it's like. Not that every group isn't spoken against, but I'm telling you, evil is evil. And so I'm not going to hide and say, oh, well, there are some kind of people and so on. Not at all. So anyways, it's a lie, and it's not a Christian view. It's an ignorant, superstitious view. Because most Christians, they don't have any religion. They have a superstition. And a lot of Hindus don't have a religion either. They've got a superstition too. See, you can turn anything. See, if I wanted to figure out how, I guess I could beat someone to death with this. It's a magnifying glass. That's not what it's for. I could maybe blind somebody with this. In other words, I could take anything and turn it into something of destruction. The value of yoga, it takes what is a cause of destruction, the distraction of the senses, the vagaries of the mind, the confusion of emotions, and it takes those, and through japa and meditation, it's healed, it's purified, it's elevated. And that in you which before worked against you now works for you. And that which earlier pushed you down lifted you up. Now, I mean, when the essential nature is there. Like if you used to get drunk every night and you become a yogi and you still drink the booze, you're just an old drunk, you're not a yogi. So please don't think. See, there's no way around it. People would so love to go around God and then get to sneak on further, but you just can't. And it's lucky for you, you can't, because you're protected in a way. Ignorance is sometimes a real protection. So, there are some people, don't talk about this stuff. Don't tell them all about it. A lot of people, we say, well, explain it to me. Oh, tell them a book to read. I'm very serious. Now, I babbled on and on and on, and I thank you so very much for your patience. So, what will the next question be a month from now? well, the next question I get out of here. This is a whole collection I've collected. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's pretty interesting. So then, thank you. Here I'm babbling on and on. I'm really good at that. I come from a family that could really talk. So forgive me for my foolishness, my vagary, my ignorance, and forgive me for enjoying talking to you as much as I do. Jai Ho.